All right, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome Rud Sports Broadcasting, bringing back the RSB Podcast. We are just now getting back into this, and we plan to do one of these at least every other week, if not every week. Myself and Caleb sitting up in, of course, me at home here in Virginia, but Caleb up there in St. Bonaventure University. Uh, and so, how are things up there? Is it snowing up there yet, Caleb?
Actually, it is not, which is kind of insane, but it was like 70 degrees yesterday, so we
Well,
might not be getting one for a while.
it was 82 here, so
Jeez. I
yeah.
was today I didn't wear a sweatshirt out and it was like 50 degrees, but it didn't feel that cold, but apparently it was. It was like a real feel of like 44 and it was like 50 degrees, but
Yeah.
doesn't even feel
Yeah.
cold up here.
Well, we're supposed to get a cold snap here coming
Hopefully, I want
soon.
snow.
So, yeah, right. All right. So, what we're going to do today, as we bring this back to you guys here on the RSB followers, we are going to talk some NFL. We're going to talk some may have some comments regarding some of the officiating that we've seen the last couple weeks in the NFL. And then after that, we're going to transition, talk a little about the early start to the NHL season. Uh, the NBA, there's not a whole lot to talk about right now, so I don't think we're really going to go into that. But we're going to talk about the NHL and we're going to talk about the NFL. So, Caleb, I think, you know, let's start with the AFC West. So, looking into the AFC West, do you think there's two teams that come out of the West? I mean, Kansas City's a gimme, right? Like they're 8-0. Like I don't know who's beating Kansas City right now because even when they're supposed to lose, they don't. Um, I go back to last on Monday night. I don't understand why for Tampa Bay why you would give Patrick Mahomes the opportunity with the ball. Why not just go for two and go for the win uh, in regulation? But yeah, that to me was not the wisest decision. But Kansas City seems to find a way, no matter how. But they are not the same team they were last year. They're not blowing people away, and they're playing to the level of opponents. So I'm okay with them going 17-0. I just don't want to see. I just would prefer to see them at 17-1 come January. So so what say you though? I have a feeling. I think the Chargers might have an opportunity coming out of the West as a wild card. Some people think Denver. I don't think Denver's there yet. Bo Nix is surprisingly good, um, but I don't think he can. He's not going to carry that team by himself. So, what do you think? What are your thoughts on the AFC West?
I agree. I think it's obvious with who's coming out of there as the top seed and probably the number one seed in the AFC. I don't think it's surprising that the Chiefs are 8-0. Well, I mean, I do. Um, that is the Chiefs by far have the best defense in football. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. That defense is next level, and their offense it has been what has won them 3 championships, but it's not there this year. But the year they need their defense to step up the most, their defense has. And I think that could be why the Chiefs repeat again and make number 3 just based off of their defense. That defense is on a next level. And when it comes to other people coming out of the AFC West, the Chargers definitely could. And I also agree that the Broncos could. I mean, both those teams have the exact same amount of wins. The only reason the Chargers are above them is because they have a bye, and the Broncos have an extra loss. But right now, it's seeming that there definitely could be an extra team out of there. I mean, you get talking about like the other divisions and who like it's going to be the Steelers and the Ravens out of the East. North, not East. Out of the North, it's going to be the Steelers and the
I was
Ravens.
wondering. I thought maybe I thought there was a realignment that happened mid-season or something. But okay.
The East and the North switched. Hey, I mean, maybe they should switch. 3 of the teams in the East are more North than like every single team in the West. I mean,
That's true.
in the North. So the only thing that keeps them
So
from being the North is the Dolphins. But
yeah, true. So I'm going to push us over now to, I'm going to push us over to the AFC South. Uh, Houston took a really tough hit. Losing Stephon Diggs, they're without Nico Collins. I mean, yeah, you've got Tank Dell, but there's no one. It's not a whole lot now. Nico Collins is supposed to come back from IR. I think they activated him this week, and so he's in his 21-day window now. Um, I think that's enough to give. When you look at the South, Tennessee is not very good. Jacksonville's even worse. Indianapolis has a shot. Uh, they have an easier schedule than Houston does, and that's the only reason I would say that. But I really do think that I think Houston, by virtue of the way they started the season, is going to be able to survive to win the division, um, even if they don't, even if they don't, go far in the playoffs. So my guess is they'll be probably, most likely, they're going to be the 4 seed coming out of there as the division winner. Your thoughts?
I mean, I don't even know what seed they could be because I feel like the 3rd seed right now is sitting up for grabs with Pittsburgh, Houston, and Baltimore. This game obviously important for Baltimore tonight with that division game against Cincinnati, which I don't know the score of right now because I'm paying attention to the standings on my phone right now. But I mean, it's going to be based off of the Steelers and the Ravens steal wins from each other. And I know I'm kind of going back to the North, and I've been talking about the North more than the division we're supposed to be talking about, but that kind of is the division that is kind of controlling things right now. And
Yeah.
definitely 2 teams are coming out of that North division. And then the
I
Colts,
I would
and the Texans could sneak in. I think the Texans are the team that's coming out of there because they do have a very good quarterback, a really solid defense. You had defensive rookie of the year Will Anderson and offensive rookie of the year CJ Stroud. Last year, you had that team is a really solid team. Nico Collins coming back is going to be important, but Stephon Diggs obviously a huge loss, but I don't think any of those 3 teams are better than a Diggsless Texans team.
That's true. That's true. And here's the difference with Indy, right? So uh Indianapolis is in disarray. This is my take. Indianapolis is 100% in disarray. I mean, your quarterback tapped out, which you can't do. Joe Flacco came in against the Vikings and did not look very good. I think they just couldn't move the ball against the Vikings defense. Now, granted, the Vikings defense isn't like playing the Carolina Panthers defense, right? But still, it's Joe Flacco. Like he should be able to read the different things. Like we'll get to the NFC North and the Vikings in a bit, but for as good as the Brian Flores defense is, a a veteran quarterback should be able to run dagger and find the holes with his. The only thing is he doesn't have speedy receivers, so he's got to hold the ball longer, and that might have been part of why Flacco found himself in the grass quite a bit in that game on Sunday night because he was holding onto the ball because his receivers just not, like Downs is his fastest receiver, and I think he's a 4.5 guy. Uh, but maybe 4.4, 4.3. But either way, he's the fastest guy on that team, and he's not necessarily faster than the D-backs he's going up against. Um, so if you jam him, just like they talked to you, like the difference between him and Jefferson, other than speed, uh, um, is Jefferson's able to get open. He's able to get around the the jam at the line uh, a lot better than Downs is able to. At least that's what I saw on Sunday night. That was really the first time I got to watch Indy play, but I just felt like he was jammed too much.
Comparing Downs to Jefferson is insane. That
Well,
seems like a really
you can't
unfair
you can't compare.
comparison.
I'm only comparing because of the game. I'm not saying like obviously, you know, Jefferson is easily the number one receiver in the league. Um, and so I don't think that's going to change. But so yeah, you're right. It is unfair to compare Downs to Jefferson, but you know. So moving on, let's move on up to the AFC North. So right now, Pittsburgh is leading that division by virtue of a bye and an extra loss by Baltimore. Uh, for sure, tonight is a big night for them. They got to beat Cincy. Uh, they're at M&T tonight. I don't see why they wouldn't beat Cincy here. Um, but as you see, I got my Mark Andrews on today for in celebration of the Thursday night football game. Um, but I think the truth is, I still think Baltimore is better than Pittsburgh. I think the the thing is going to come down to is who has the better defense. Defensively, I would tell you that the Ravens probably are not, at least their pass defense is not better than Pittsburgh, but teams have been able to run on Pittsburgh. So, and they have this guy in Baltimore named Derrick Henry, who I feel like they can still take the division. But I don't think there's anybody coming out of the North that's going to challenge KC anyway. So, but I think there's the very outside possibility that all of your wild card teams, or at least two of them, Baltimore and Cincy, come out of uh, Baltimore, Pittsburgh, and Cincy. You could see three teams from the AFC North in the playoffs uh, in January.
Cincy
Hey,
has
maybe Cleveland Browns will turn it around. It might be a little late to get. I mean, they went out, they go 10-7. I don't know. Probably not going to happen though.
Cincy needs to start playing football. That's just straight up. That team has last week absolutely amazing game. Not by Jamar Chase. I mean, I don't know how you put up 7 fantasy points when your quarterback throws for 5 touchdowns and you let a tight end named Drew Sample outscore you. But that team in general has just not played well this season, or at least not up to Cincinnati fashion. Like that's not how they need to play. If they step it up, I could see 3 teams coming out of that division. I think, like right now, Cincinnati's tied with the Colts, and I don't know who exactly has the bye over there right now. And maybe the Jets somehow start stepping it up, and then the Jets come out and play. Plus, both Cincinnati and Indy are behind Los Angeles and Denver. So when you look at teams in the chase, like right now, I think the playoff picture is the Bills, the Chiefs, Steelers, Texans, Ravens, Chargers, Broncos. So then you have the 3 teams out of the West, like we talked about earlier, and that's what it is right now. That leaves Cincinnati on the outside looking in, and no matter which team wins the AFC North, right now my pick is Pittsburgh just because I agree with you. It's going to come down to who has a better defense, and I think the team with the better defense is Pittsburgh. And not just saying that because they're on my fantasy team, but I mean, they are, and they've done some pretty amazing things over there. So, um, Pittsburgh just seems to be a next level team on defense, at least. And
Right.
there are a few plays that may not have fallen in their direction. Like, I think Pickens has the most touchdowns or most catches that were really close to touchdowns. That if the ball was just an inch further in, or the refs called 2 feet, 2 feet.
True.
2 foot is not 2 feet, apparently. But, there's just a lot of
Well, you know.
there's just a lot of Pickens catches that seem to not count. And a few that are like good calls that he's obviously out on. But if Pickens can just get that extra footing, get that extra towing, get that healing, that changes everything. And I think
Yeah.
Pittsburgh can definitely pull things together because they're not going under 500 because Mike Tomlin.
Right.
And Mike Tomlin, one of the best coaches in history, he'll get that team to come together. And right now, I think it's Pittsburgh's division to lose. The Ravens are going to have something to say about that, but I think Pittsburgh's a better team.
Well, they
And
showed up their they showed up their defense here, their secondary here at the trade deadline. So
right,
remains to be seen. I don't know if he's playing tonight, but uh, that that was a smart play by Baltimore
I
to
could
shore up their defense and get a corner that can actually cover
I could
and let
tell you
him.
as
But
a
that was
Bills
Washington.
fan, Tre'Davious White might not be the difference maker you think he is.
Never
I'm
know.
just saying. He was on my team and he was hurt half the time. So he is a really good cornerback, but he
Right.
has some health issues. But not a
Well,
bad pickup.
if he can stay healthy.
Not a bad pickup at all. I watched him for a few seasons over there in Buffalo, and
Yeah.
when we got rid of him, I was upset. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I don't really wish I wish he stayed on our team, but now that he's gone, I don't really wish for him back. I love the way my defense is playing, so
Yeah. So let's move on up to uh on up to
the East,
the AFC East.
my
And
division.
I say up. So I think like Buffalo's going to win that. They're 7-2. Bills are a gimme. Josh Allen is still Josh Allen. Um, New York Jets. I mean, they're 3-6 and they're sitting right behind Buffalo, and so I'm curious about your thought process and why you think the Jets are wild card material because I don't see it. Aaron Rodgers is well, he's ass. That's the best way I can put it right now. Like he has looked terrible. He's made and so I mean he got his head coach fired. Then he went out and got Devontae Adams. Like if you cannot convince me that Aaron Rodgers is not running that team and then running it into the ground.
Uh,
Because I think he is making a good portion of the decisions uh, on who comes to that team, who leaves that team. But at the end of the day, he's not executing. Like that's no one's fault except for his own. But he's having a hard time taking responsibility for that because it's always somebody else's fault.
I mean, the Jets are the only other team coming out of that even have a shot of coming out of that division because I mean the Patriots are a shell of their former self. I mean, you could look at the
They did beat
Patriots
the
and
Jets
say,
though.
true. I mean, I don't know how there's still fans over there because I thought all those fans were bandwagon fans, but apparently not. I've never liked them. So I,
Well,
I'll continue to not like them, and I'll be fully admitting on that I do not like the Patriots. I also don't like the Dolphins or the Jets, but the Dolphins are one of the best teams on paper, and I honestly thought they were going to be contenders, but Tua has no clue where he is right now. I don't even
I
think
think
Tua knows he is on planet Earth. I think he just goes out there and throws a ball. Uh, I don't think he can make coherent sentences anymore. Honestly, when he was asked about his concussion and returning, he gave the most concussed answer I've ever heard in my entire life. I forgot what exactly he said, but that man is not okay, and he should probably stop playing football. And I'm not just saying that because I don't want to play him anymore because we always beat the Dolphins and it doesn't matter. But Tua is not okay and
no, that
should
I
seriously
agree.
get some help.
Yeah, Tua is not in a good spot. I don't think. I don't think he should have returned. I got it. NFL has concussion protocols. He cleared all of them. I just don't. Yeah,
This is also this is also
I don't like the vibe.
this is also the same Dolphins medical staff that sent him out last year. In the same game,
True.
he got severely concussed in, and he got
Yeah.
a way worse concussion because of it. I mean,
Right.
I did that too when in my freshman year of high school, I was concussed and I went back out there and kept playing, and I got a way worse concussion
Yeah.
because until someone tells him to stop playing, he's not going to.
Exactly. I agree.
Like
I don't disagree with you on that.
the
I,
the
I,
entire staff is saying, "Hey, you're a grown man. You can make your own decisions." And he's a NFL player. His decision is going to be to keep playing.
but yeah, that's his livelihood. So he would have been better off trying to take a media job. He could have done that, right? Like he could have been a guy in the booth,
True.
it, and done that, and still stayed involved with the game. Um, kind of wish he would have actually, to be honest with you, but just
It's
not
just scary
not
watching him
because
play.
every time I see him go, every time he gets hit, like I think Miami as a collective city goes,
The NFL
you know,
world as a collective goes, oh, because it's just when I'm a Bills fan. I still hate the Dolphins, but at the same time, when Tua runs, I think every that first run he had, I mean, it's a good thing he slid, but you could just see the defenders standing in front of him, ready to tackle him if they had to. But the defenders were hoping he was going to slide because none of those defenders looked actually ready to tackle him, and I was holding my breath when I saw him take off, and it's
yeah,
hard. It's just hard to watch Tua play right now because every single time he might get sacked or every single time he runs, I just hold
uh,
my breath because I'm not going to wish harm upon anybody, despite what I might have said at my TV screen sometimes. I mean, I still don't actually wish anybody to get hurt, and watching Tua play is scary right now.
yeah, it is kind of scary right now. Hey, so all right, so I've got the Bills coming out of there. I don't think you guys get a wild card team out of the AFC East. I think uh, you know, final predictions. I think Buffalo wins. Pittsburgh or Baltimore win the North. Houston's going to get the South, and KC is going to get the West. And I think your wild card teams is I, I think it's either Cincy +1 and probably the Chargers.
I would say I agree with everything you said. I think the Chargers are pretty much a lock. However, they are the Chargers. They could definitely find some way to not make the playoffs. They seem to do it every single season. So it wouldn't surprise me for something to happen to the Chargers that makes them lose out and somehow not make the playoffs. They are still the Chargers, and they always will be the Chargers. Um, I would say definitely your number one seed's definitely the Chiefs, and then The Bills at number 2. I go Steelers number 3. I do think the Steelers are that better team. Texans 4, Ravens 5, Chargers 6, and Broncos 7. I really do think that Broncos team is solid enough, and I think Bo Nix is solid enough. Bo Nix looked like one of the worst quarterbacks, if not the worst quarterback of this draft class at the beginning of the season. I didn't give him enough time before getting very aggressive with him. I think Bo Nix is really solid. Definitely not the best quarterback because I think it's obvious that Jaden Daniels is, and it's not really close. But Bo Nix, he's starting to come into his own, and I think he's not going to lead a deep playoff run, but I think he could lead a run to the playoffs. I think that will be halted by Buffalo immediately, but I do think that the Broncos could make it in.
Okay, that's fair. I know. So I got three coming out of the North plus the Chargers. You've got Denver in there instead. But so let's move on to the NFC, and I am going to save the best for last, which is the NFC North.
That division is so fun.
So let's go ahead and start. We're going to go East first, and I'm going to skip over the North. So the East, wow. Couple of surprises. So the New York Giants suck, and that's not surprising. Uh, what surprises me is where Dallas is versus where Washington is. If you would have asked me to start this season, I would have probably flip flopped them, but I probably would have put the Eagles up above and first, and I would have flip flopped Washington and Dallas. That's going into the season, but uh, Dallas is just bad. I mean, and I don't know what Jerry Jones is doing. Like, you signed Jonathan Mingo. Like, you traded for Jonathan Mingo at the deadline for what? Like, what does he bring that you don't already have? Like, it's time to rebuild, Jerry. You know what I mean? You're not there. Like with Dak out, they have no chance. So
I agree with that. I mean, I have been a very proud Caleb Williams hater since before the draft, since he won the Heisman and then yelled about Max Duggan crying at a press conference after losing a national championship and then crying in his mom's arms. And I think he's a douche and I don't like him. And he's gotten better, but that doesn't change my opinion on him. So I've always thought that Jaden Daniels was the best quarterback of this draft. And he's proving me right. He's proving me very right. Jaden Daniels is really fun to watch play football. And I want a Jaden Daniels jersey. Christmas gift idea, by the way.
yeah, we'll see if that happens.
Uh,
But
but
no. So I don't disagree. Here's the thing. I think, and I'm probably going to eat my words to be honest. But I really do think Washington can beat and take the division because of Jaden Daniels. Plus, you got Scary Terry. They just shored up their defense a little bit with getting Lattimore out of New Orleans. He's not the same Lattimore that he was, a few years ago, but he's still pretty decent. He's still an improvement of what they've got on defense, right? So he's going to shore up that secondary a little bit. Um, the question for the Eagles to me was I feel like early on that Jalen Hurts was not running the ball as much
they do
and
have
was trying to
Saquon
stay in the
Barkley.
pocket and was trying to stay in the pocket and throw, and he was forcing throws. If he gets back to his original self, and when he feels the pressure, decides to take off instead of trying to hold in there. Um, you know, I think that they're going to challenge, but I think Washington's the better team, and they were always in rebuild mode. This was actually supposed to be the last year of their rebuild, and it has turned into a very surprising year for them. So I think I've got Washington taking that division with Philly right on their heels. Definitely going to be a wild card team.
Uh, I
Uh,
I definitely agree with that. Washington. I love Washington, and that team is really fun to watch play football. And I hope I get to see a lot more of them um, coming. And I do think that they take the division. The Eagles are just really inconsistent, and I think that's their biggest problem. Is they are 6-2. They've only lost 2 games, but it just seems like that team is so good that they can make up for their mistakes when they happen. But I feel like they're so inconsistent that once they get to the postseason, whether that be as a top seed or a wild card team, it doesn't really matter. And I don't think they're going very far once they make the playoffs just because their consistency is so low and they just make too many mistakes.
you're talking about the Eagles?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Washington makes 0 mistakes. They are amazing and they are godly and they're the best team
They
in
are
the
by
NFC.
they are by far not the best team in the NFC, though. I'm
Well,
gonna
probably
I'm gonna
not.
argue it.
That is
I'm not gonna.
definitely the Lions. That is
That's
definitely
for sure the
definitely the
Lions,
Lions. The
and maybe
Lions
it. Yeah.
the Lions are the best team in the entire NFL. And the Lions are also a really godly team that I love to watch play football. I love watching the Lions and I love watching the Commanders. But I like watching the Commanders more because I love Jaden Daniels. And
Yeah.
I've been really high on Jaden Daniels since before the draft, since last season.
I
Um,
think you and I talked about that this spring, and we said Jaden Daniels should go ahead of Caleb Williams, but you knew he wasn't going to because Chicago wanted him, and you knew that because they got rid of Justin Fields.
I don't think I don't think Jaden Daniels would do what he's doing if he was in Chicago, but I also don't think Caleb Williams would be much better if he was in Washington. I think based on what was like Dan Quinn seems like a new person too. I mean, definitely coach of the year no matter what happens the rest of the season. I think Dan Quinn's your coach of the year. Um, he was blamed for a lot of the Falcons' failure over the past 2 years. Dan Quinn was. And coming into Washington, you couldn't have expected much of a difference. And he's shown that he is that difference. And I think you can't totally give all the credit to a quarterback when they have a new coach too. Dan Quinn has turned a wide receiver that a lot of people were not calling as good as he was supposed to be, and Scary Terry. And McLaurin has took a step up this year, which just shows that the only reason he was playing like he was because he had Taylor Heineke and Sam Howell throwing balls to him.
I
Now that he
agree.
has a quarterback, he's playing great. That offense is really solid. Brian Robinson, is that his
Yeah,
name?
I was
Yeah, it is.
yeah,
Brian
it's Brian.
Robinson Jr. Um, he's been really good too, and I think you're looking at a future face of the league in Jaden Daniels to lead that team to something special. And Dan Quinn, a coach I have called one of the worst coaches in history, and now I'm saying he should win Coach of the Year. So
Well, that's very possible. I don't know. The So I'm gonna move past the NFC North, and I'm gonna go take us out to the South, which that's a shitty division if I've ever seen one. But they're I mean it's gonna be
I
it's gonna be the Falcons.
I just want to point something out here. I don't know if you guys can see my phone if I go like this. Oh no, you can't because of my
No,
thing.
yeah.
But uh, the Panthers don't have a logo on my phone or a name. It just goes Falcons Buccaneers, blank space, Saints. That is how bad the Panthers are. Google
Well,
has officially said the Panthers are no longer an NFL team and has taken them off the face of the earth. There's just
they
nothing. Someone has
this
2 wins, but it's not
despite
the
being third
Panthers.
in their division, right? So I think this, at the beginning of the season, I said it was the Buccaneers to lose, but then they lost Godwin and Evans, and it doesn't matter how good Baker Mayfield is when he's got nobody to throw to.
Well, we also know that you're not going to. When we do get to talking about the Falcons, I know you're not going to give credit where credit's due to that quarterback. That proud Kirk Cousins hater over
So
there.
so I am still a Kirk Cousins hater, but I will tell you that um, he is a different quarterback this year than he was with the Vikings.
No, he
I I
wasn't.
I still think no, because uh, we know that when he was in Minnesota for every single year, if it was a primetime game, we were going to lose because he was going to choke, and it happened every single year. But he's played well in primetime this year, so maybe the change of scenery. I don't know. I will tell you, I will go. I'm not going to eat my words and say I like Kirk Cousins. I'm going to say that Kirk Cousins is a better quarterback this year than he was in years past.
Oh, I still think Kirk Cousins is a good quarterback. I've always thought Kirk Cousins was a good quarterback, and me and Marissa have always made fun of you for saying how bad you think Kirk Cousins is because
Because he's a
I've
good
always
fantasy guy, but he can't win. He can't win in crunch time.
I've
The difference with the Falcons this year is that he hasn't had to win in crunch time. You see what I'm saying?
still has. They have 7 wins, 6 wins,
6-3.
6 wins, and that team is definitely winning that division because the Buccaneers have no receiving core because Godwin got killed
Godwin and
by
Evans.
Godwin's injury should have never happened. There should have never been a play call. They were down 10 with like 45 seconds left or something. And there's a point where you just got to throw a game down. And as a coach, you have to admit you have to admit defeat. No reason to be running a deep play to Godwin. And I would blame their coach. I forgot his name for some reason. I think it's Bruce Arians. Yeah, Bruce Arians
Bruce Arians.
for Godwin's injury. Evans just got
Well,
hurt because Evans got hurt, but Godwin should have never
yeah,
been put in the spot he was.
true. But I'm also going to say that coaching. So here's the thing. This isn't college. So you have to take chances when chances are there. So like for sure, Tampa Bay never should have been as close as they were to Kansas City, right? They should have won on Monday night, in my opinion. They should have gone for two. You have to take that chance because you know the chances that because if you don't win the toss, so you're leaving it to fate, right? As to whether or not you're going to have a chance to possess the ball. And as soon as Mahomes does it, like if you go back and you watch the coin flip, you see Baker Mayfield go, oh, when they lost the toss. You should have just gone for two. You had nothing to lose. Yeah, at that point, because at this point you're fighting for position in your own division, and that win would have been huge. Um, I don't know that it would make a whole lot of difference going forward for them, but um, I still think that uh, I still think you need to be more aggressive when you have that type of momentum on your side. But either way, Kirko Chains is probably going to take Atlanta to the playoffs and then be outed in the first round because that's Kirk Cousins and that's what he does.
Now this is new Kirk Cousins, remember? This
Yeah,
is
he's
at
still.
this is Atlanta Cousins.
Yeah,
Okay.
but
This
he's
is
gonna have too
Southern
much
Kirk
pressure.
Cousins. This
Too
is
much
Southern
pressure.
Kirk Cousins.
Home cooking, huh? All right.
This is iced up Kirk Cousins. He's got that fried okra that he eats before every single game.
Yeah, right. All right. So moving on to the NFC West. Now this one I think we're gonna have a little discernation on here because you have four teams within a game of each other. But, and this is probably the only year I'm gonna say this, I think Arizona takes the West.
Christian
But
McCaffrey's coming back this week.
yeah, well, I know I've got him on my fantasy team, but he's still on my IR, and I haven't removed him yet because I'm waiting to see if he actually plays.
Well,
Um,
even if he comes back next week, um, that division's horrible, and they're not the worst division because the worst division's still the NFC South, but that is a very mid division. There's no team that's going to win a playoff game in that division. Um, and
Short of San Francisco if CMC stays healthy, but they also lost Brandon Ayuk. They lost Deep. They think they lost Debo too, didn't they?
Debo's
Or
back
is
this
he?
week, I think.
Is he?
I mean, he's
So
starting on my fantasy team, so I hope he's back. But I
my
mean,
point being, I think you because the other thing is Juwan Jennings is also hurt, and so you don't know if you're going to have him back. And until you have him back, all you got is Kittle. You're only throwing to Kittle and Debo. So
we've
it is
we've seen what CMC can do for a team, and McCaffrey is the best running back in the league, and it's not close. And I think he's none of his past injuries have really taken away from his skill. When he's come back stronger than when he got hurt. He's been injured a lot throughout his career, but when he comes back stronger than he was before. And I think that lifts the 49ers to at least a division win, if not more. But I think your NFC West champions are the 49ers because Black Ops 6 comes out, and we know how Kyler Murray is with his video games. So he's going to get distracted. There's literally something in his contract. There's literally something in his contract that says he can't play video games, and he has to watch film. They literally gave him a homework clause in his contract. And the Rams are even more injury prone than the Niners are. Same with the Seahawks. That entire division's injury prone except for the Cardinals. And the Cardinals just aren't on the level of the other three teams. The only reason the Cardinals are in first place is because the other three teams are living in a hospital. And the
true.
Niners the Niners are getting their best player back. They're getting the best player in the league back. And
Oh,
he'll
Saquon Barkley still has the play of the year though with the backwards.
a backwards hurdle is really solid. He's also on
It
my
is.
fantasy team. So
So
I got like 25 points from him last week. I'm perfectly happy.
all right, so we're gonna move to the best division in football, the NFC North. I don't I don't think anybody would argue with this being the best division in football. I mean, Detroit at 7-1. Yeah, best team in the league, best team in the NFC. Yes, uh, by virtue of um, their record. However, I'm going to say Minnesota was, you know, a field goal away from winning that game. In fact, let me phrase that. They did hit a field goal. They were up by one, but they just left too much time on the clock. Gave them enough time to get down the field and uh, boot through a field goal as time expired, and that's the only reason. Um, and I think when Minnesota goes to Detroit in week 18, I think it's going to be the same deal. It's going to come down to the last play, and two good teams should play down to the last play of the game that is going to decide it, right? Like that's what good teams do. Um, Chicago, I still think brings up the rear in that division. I mean, they couldn't even get a touchdown in Arizona. Um, they, I mean, when your corner is sitting there talking to fans versus playing football on the last play of the game and costs you the game because he wasn't playing his position. Uh, that's embarrassing on so many
Now,
levels to that team.
I feel bad for Tyreek Stevenson because a lot of fans were saying that he was taunting. He said he wasn't. He said he was talking to Chicago fans, which still isn't great. But he did get back to his spot. Like he did get to where he needed to. He
No,
just
he was
didn't
supposed
get
to.
high enough. He just didn't get high enough, and he ended up tipping the ball into
He was supposed to
Noah
be
Brown's
behind.
hands.
No,
And
he
if
was supposed to. Brown was his guy. He was supposed to be behind the pack
you don't
guy.
have a man on a Hail Mary, you just go for the ball. But I feel like that could have happened to anybody, and I feel like it just is unlucky that it was him, and I kind of feel bad for him. Now, it's also kind of hard to feel bad for a Chicago player, which is why I'm so happy that Caleb Williams went to Chicago, because now I can hate on him for more than one reason.
This is
Um,
true.
and um, I do feel bad for Tyreek Stevenson. That I think it was taken out of proportion, and I think it was just a really unlucky play. And nobody would be talking about it the way they are if he hadn't been pointing at the Chicago fans in the stands. Like, if you find a group of hometown fans, you're going to kind of give them a little love, especially when you have a rookie quarterback throwing a Hail Mary. That's not usually going to work. And it
No.
shouldn't have worked except for Tyreek Stevenson dumped it into Noah Brown's hands. And
Yeah.
that works. But I just don't think Stevenson should be as attacked as he is right now
Yeah.
because football is
But
still
s-
an
so
intense sport.
so let's talk about that game again, real quick. So based off of that game, some people still say Caleb Williams should still be the rookie of the year. I don't think so. I think Jaden Daniels is the rookie of the year by far. And if they make it to the playoffs, they win that division. I don't. It's going to come down to him and probably Jared Goff as to who's going to be the MVP, or possibly, I guess, at least out of the NFC.
Lamar Jackson's the front runner for MVP. I don't know how. My quarterback still hasn't thrown an interception, but okay. I guess Josh Allen can just go die in a hole. It's okay.
He's not that good, so
Yeah, I mean, he's played 10 games and hasn't thrown an interception, but it's okay. We'll just
Yeah,
keep not winning awards that we should because he got his MVP stolen before, twice.
yeah. Let me. But well, let's finish off the North before we talk about a couple of those things,
I mean,
those awards. So I'm going to go with this. So my heart of hearts wants to say the Vikings still have a shot at winning the division, but then there's the realist in me because I've been a Vikings fan for so long. I'm used to disappointment. So uh, I think Detroit takes this division, but I do think Minnesota ends up second. I don't think. I mean, they've already got one win over Green Bay, uh, and I don't see that changing. The big thing is going to have to be whether or not Sam Darnold, like, so I've come to the conclusion with the Vikings that like Sam Darnold's going to make 2 to 3 bonehead play decisions per game. and we're just going to have to live with that. Also, Sam Darnold specifically is playing against 7 other players on the field every time he drops back. So, you know, you
He
can get
only
hit in
got
the
his head
head
ripped off once.
twice.
One really big one.
The only touchdown that Indianapolis had was a fumble where Sam Darnold got hit in the head and dropped the ball. Now, would he have fumbled it anyway? Most likely. I think that ball was going to come loose just based off of the way he was holding it, but he did get hit in the head. That negates the fact that he was in the process potentially of dropping the ball. So, like, you can't do it. It should have been 15 yards and a first down versus 6 points for Indy. But that's the only touchdown Indy got against the Vikings, which tells me um, with that defense that you know if the defense plays like the defense can, like Van Ginkel is crazy as far as linebackers go. I think he's had an excellent year. I think he's got 3 interceptions, um, but he's got multiple sacks, multiple tackles for loss. He reads the play really well. So with him and Ivan Pace, the middle of that is really good. Stephon Gilmore's been functional for the Vikings, so I think there's a good chance that they're going to make at least a wild card. I mean, they're already sitting at 6-2, and they probably have the easiest schedule of any other team coming up here.
It's
I mean, we
it's hard to say that the Vikings aren't going to win like 4 more games and get to 10. And 10's probably what you need to make the playoffs. It's hard to
it
say
might
the
be
Vikings
11.
aren't going to get 4. Oh, it's a little bit harder to say they're going to get 5 more wins, but I think that team's solid enough to make the playoffs. I don't know what's going to happen after they make the playoffs. Right now, it's seeming like they will, but I'm going to go out on a limb because why not? And I know this isn't going to happen. We're going to say all 3 of my wild card teams are coming out of the North because the Bears are going to like win out or something and the Eagles are going to start losing games. That's what I'm going to go with. That might be the hottest take I've ever said in my entire life.
Yeah,
But guess what?
I was going to say that's
Guess
a bold
what?
prediction right there. That's a bold prediction. But when you look, but again, NFC West teams are going to knock each other off. But here's the other thing about the North. They haven't played each other either. So, I mean, what the Vikings have played the Packers, and
I
they play the
say
Lions.
I
So
say
they got the Bears twice, they got the Packers again, they got Detroit again, but they haven't. Most of the North hasn't played each other yet. Um, so they're going to end up taking each other out at some point.
I say everyone drops games to the Bears and gives them free wins, despite how much I hate them, and they let all 3 teams make the playoffs. Everyone go out there and gang up against the Eagles because Lord knows their division can't do it. And everyone gang up on the Eagles, beat the Eagles a bunch, let the Bears win football games, and all 3 teams from the North make it. I mean, all 4 teams from the North make it.
That is a bold prediction, my friend. That is a bold prediction.
Now,
Right.
if I'm making an actual prediction, it's going to be the Vikings, Packers, and Eagles as your wild card teams, and your regular teams are going to be the Commanders, the Niners, the Lions, and the Falcons. And I think the NFC is very settled right now in the division winners, except for whatever's happening in the West right now. I mean,
Well,
they're all tied.
don't
So
discount the Rams now that they've got Puka back. They've got I mean
I thought you were
Williams has
gonna.
been
I
Kyron
thought you were
Williams has
gonna
been
tell
playing
me to
really well
not.
for them.
I thought you were gonna tell me to not discount the Panthers. I can't lie. I thought you were about to make a joke, and I thought you were gonna go, "Don't discount the Panthers. They might win their division."
Well, it is the South, so you never know. They
Nah,
gotta let
not with
They
Kirk
gotta
O'Chains.
no, they gotta let Bryce Young play. That's the problem. All
I'm
right.
pretty sure their problem's the exact opposite of letting Bryce Young play. I think they
Yeah.
need to do the opposite and
Yeah.
give Andy Dalton some sort of special medicine to heal him because Bryce Young is. This is the first time Bryce Young has kneeled a ball down in a football game, and it was a 1-point win.
True. All right. Mid-season predictions for awards. Rookie of the year. I got Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, I think everybody has Jaden Daniels for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
All right. Defensive Rookie of the year.
That one cornerback on that one team. I can't name a single defensive rookie this season. Dallas Turner for the Vikings. I don't
I
know.
was gonna say,
Like
Dallas Turner. I don't know.
no,
I'd like to think, but no.
no defender has given me any.
Dallas Turner's been doing really well in the pass rush, so that might not be a bad, idea that could, he might have. I don't think he will
right
unless
now.
Minnesota wins a division, then you might look at it, but I think, yeah, I think by far though, so
This could be cheating, but I just looked it up and Sports Betting Dime says vote for Jaden Verse. So I'm gonna say Jared Verse. Which during the combine I did really like Jaden Verse, but no defensive rookies giving me anything. The two best rookie players I saw in the draft combine were Verse and Turner, and they both have been playing solidly, but no one's played to a Rookie of the Year standard, so I say we just take that award away. I also say we take that award away for the NBA. No Rookie of the Year this season.
I'm okay with that. Hey,
the NBA rookies have been subpar, and defensive Rookie of the Years have also been subpar. So,
yeah,
but
I would agree. Okay, defensive player of the year. I got my eyes on either Chris Jones or T.J. Watt.
yeah,
Dexter Lawrence would be there if the Giants were any better, but they're not. So
I
I'm
think
thinking T.J. Watt is probably the front runner.
I would agree with that. However, I want Dexter Lawrence to win that award just because I love Dexter Lawrence, and he's one of my favorite players in the league. So I'll say Dexter Lawrence. He's had a really, really, really good season. And also, I think the true defensive player of the year should still be Aiden Hutchinson. It's not fair that he decided to wrap his leg completely around his teammate, which is still gory, and I still can't believe his leg did that because that's just absolutely insane that your teammate's leg can be that strong that your leg just decides to go all noodly and just wrap around him like a yo-yo. And I will never be able to get that picture out of my head, ever.
Yeah.
And I think we should all vote and give Aiden Hutchinson Defensive Player of the Year because this was one of the best defensive seasons we were seeing in history. He was on record-breaking pace, and he got hurt. So I say we all still give it to Aiden Hutchinson and say, screw the rest. And I know I'm kind of joking with that right there, and the fact that I honestly think they should just give it to Dexter Lawrence because he plays for the Giants, and that's not fair.
I'm giving my defensive player of the year to the officiating crew from that happened to do the Thursday night and then the Sunday night game last 2 weeks. So
how about the reffing crew that does every single Chiefs game? This is getting ridiculous.
No, that's the offensive. Those are offensive players of the year.
Oh no, they did fail to call that pass interference in the back of the end zone on Kyle Pitts in week 2.
That wasn't pass interference. What are you talking about?
Yeah, he was just hugging him. It's okay.
Yeah, he was just showing him some love. That's all.
He just wanted to
Um,
pick him up. He thought the ball would have hurt him if he touched it. So had to get him out of the way.
all right. Offensive player of the year. Honestly, I'm going D. Henry, uh, and
Saquon Barkley.
Saquon Barkley are the
Saquon Barkley.
options, but I don't know. Derrick Henry's odds are better
My
than Saquon's, and that's because of where Baltimore is in relation to in the standings. I think more than it is anything else, because Saquon Barkley has also been a beast.
my fantasy team says Saquon Barkley, and Saquon Barkley is really fun to watch, and he's more popular. And I think when it comes to close races like this, the league tends to go with who's more liked. And I think it's very obvious who's more liked right now. That is Saquon. So Barkley would definitely be my pick for Offensive Player of the Year. He's played.
Well, he's more liked on the in the Northeast, but uh, around the rest of the NFL, I think other people would say Derrick Henry. But I don't know. It's gonna be a tight decision there.
I can tell you,
Um,
Jacksonville Jaguars fans definitely do not like Saquon Barkley right now. He jumped over one of their defenders backwards. So
yeah, well,
still insane. Still insane.
it's still an amazing play. All right. So that'll bring us to I'm sorry, coach of the year. Andy Reid again? I don't know.
Dan Quinn, Coach of the Year, goes to the coach that makes his team better, which Andy Reid can't make his team better because, yeah, it's definitely Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn in Washington, can we, with what Dan Quinn, I talked about this earlier, and I'm just going to repeat myself, but Dan Quinn was horrible in Atlanta, and I called him one of the worst quarterbacks worst coaches in history, which just isn't true, and it wasn't true last year. But he didn't know how to use his team the right way. Now he's on a team that he can use the right way, and he's doing it. He's on a team that fits him more, and Dan Quinn is – I think Dan Quinn runs away with that award just because he's taking a team that wasn't great and he's turning them into something special. And
what about Dan Campbell though? Because Dan Campbell has lit a fire under that Lions team. So
the
I,
Lions
I I
team,
think you've got to give him consideration.
I think when you look at the star power through the two teams, I feel like you have to give it to the team with the least amount of star power, and I think that's Washington. But Dan Campbell's my favorite coach in the league. I love watching his pep talks. He's awesome. He pumps me up when I watch his pep talks. I'll watch if I ever have a day where I don't feel like going to class. I just gotta watch Dan Quinn speak,
Dan Campbell.
and I'm ready to go. Like Dan
Yeah.
Quinn is just he takes too many risks, and that might be his downfall come
You mean
playoff
Dan
time.
Campbell?
Did I say
You mean
Dan
Dan?
Quinn?
You did.
Well,
One of the
why
Dans.
would the two front runners for coach of the year be named Dan? Like that's not my fault. Also, Dan and then like a word that sounds like like a K, like Quinn, Campbell. Not my fault.
Yeah,
Either
I
way,
got you.
Dan Campbell has big cojones down there, and they're too big, and he's gonna get himself into trouble because he's gonna like go for it on fourth down in like the playoffs, up by like 40 or something, and then they're gonna end up losing. I don't know, but
All right. All right, we only got a few more minutes left, so I'm going to transition us right here out of the NFL. We're going to go right into the NHL. All right, so I'm going to ask you top 5 surprises in the NHL so far. We're still fairly early, but what are your thoughts?
let me bring up some things. One of the things overall surprising is the Eastern Conference. not great. Specifically the Atlantic Division, but just kind of overall. You look at some of the teams, and it's just they're either at 500 or slightly above 500, which is just not seen in the West. And
Right.
I think that's mostly capped off by the fact that the three worst teams in the Metro Division are the Flyers, Penguins, and Islanders. And I wouldn't have paid any of those three teams to be there. So, in general, the Eastern Conference is surprising. The Bruins are terrible. The Islanders are terrible. The Penguins are really terrible. And the Flyers, I don't even know what they are. They somehow beat the Minnesota Wild. And whatever. But
Okay.
what were you going to say? Sorry.
So that I was going to say the Minnesota Wild is one of my surprise teams, and of course, as a Wild fan, I shouldn't be as surprised. I guess. I mean, but um, they are surprisingly good. Um, and goaltending has a lot to do with that. Gustafson and Fleury both have played outstanding, but they're jumping on teams early and not letting teams back in it. They've been suffocating. If you go back and watch the game against Florida, if you go back and watch the Tampa game down in Tampa, they just suffocated them. Um, I mean, they went the first 5 games of the season without ever uh, being behind in regulation. The only time that they were behind during during that stretch was the 2 overtime losses. Other than that, they until they went to Philly and that was at the end of a road trip. They went into Pittsburgh a couple nights later and kind of resurrected themselves. Um,
Well, Marc-Andre Fleury was not losing that game in Pittsburgh.
no, that was
I watched that game, but there was no way he was losing his final game in Pittsburgh. There was no way. And
no,
I'm gonna cry.
for as
I'm
much
gonna
as
cry
I
at the end
hate.
of the season.
So I know because Fleury is your number one goaltender of all time, but um, I'm going to tell you, you'll never hear me say this about any team out of Pittsburgh, except for this point where I thought it was pretty classy the way Pittsburgh did that for Fleury, knowing that was going to be his last game. I mean, it wasn't. It wasn't. Uh, you know, they're not as bad as the Eagles, but Eagles
Eagles?
fans are.
Oh,
Or
I was like,
Philly
what?
fans, Philly fans. Um, but yeah, so I
I don't
think
I don't like Pittsburgh fans in general, but are you spacing out on the football game over there?
I'm listening.
I
I'm listening, but yes, I am watching the football game too.
I don't like any Pittsburgh teams, but I did like how uh, Crosby stayed out on the ice, knowing how well Fleury played in that game. Oh my God,
Yeah,
number one star for a reason. He went in to that stadium and he put on a clinic, and number one star for a reason in that game. Crosby stays out there. And I
it was
think,
Crosby and Letang,
yeah, it
and
was Crosby
yeah,
and Letang.
yeah,
I'm really surprised Malkin didn't stay out and that it was only those two.
yeah.
I now hate Malkin for that because Malkin played with them just as long. And
True.
if you're talking about the three main players on that team, it was Malkin, Letang, and Crosby and Fleury. And Malkin not staying out there kind of
Yeah.
struck me in a not nice way. And I was,
No,
but
I don't. Yeah, I agree. I mean, but it is what it is. But I think, yeah, I think the Wild are my biggest surprise. Well, I'm going to take that back. The Wild are not my biggest surprise. My biggest surprise is how poor Colorado is this
I
year.
was just about to say that. Now, like looking,
And coupled with the fact of how good Winnipeg is this year. Like, I always thought I always knew they were good.
not one loss good.
Yeah, I was not expecting them to be one loss good. You're right. But for sure, uh, Colorado, you can't look at that roster and tell me that they should be 6-3-1.
Well, I did take another look at their roster the other day. I looked at their lines going into, I think, a game against Dallas. I could be wrong. They might not have played Dallas yet. I don't know what team it was. And I was like, they had Ross Colton on line one, and it's Ross Colton's played great. Ross Colton's been like the only bright spot of that team. And Landeskog was injured. I believe it was Landeskog. It could have been Rantanen. I kind of get them mixed up a lot. But that team is not the same team I saw in the past, and I did take a look at their roster because I was saying the exact same thing, that there's no way they should be as bad as they are. But looking back at it, Georgiev's played really bad in net. I'm pretty sure he's scared to get hit by a puck. I am honest to God.
It
He
might
is
be.
horrible. And I saw the video of, I think it was Kelly, blocked 5 shots on one shift, and the commentator accidentally said, he was like, he's out here, he's had a hell of a shift. He's like, oh, I should have said heck, but hell's the right word. Like, you blocked 5 shots. You blocked more shots on that shift than your goaltender's blocked all season. Your goaltender, they're better off playing with an empty net at this point. Goaltending has been the biggest. We say goaltending's been one of the biggest things on Minnesota. Goaltending's also been one of the biggest things on Colorado, the opposite way. Georgiev is horrible. And I have no clue how he's still in that net. Like, you cannot look me in the eye and say Georgiev can still be your man right now. That team cannot stick with him.
No.
The Oilers did last year with sending Jack Campbell down to Bakersfield or over to Bakersfield. They started to start Skinner because Jack Campbell played like crap. They brought in Stuart Skinner, and they went on win streak after win streak after win streak, and they ended up going to the Stanley Cup Finals. You got to make the change when it's necessary. And as much as I love goaltenders, and I will never say a goaltender is at fault for a way a team's playing, because I am one, Georgiev is completely at fault for how his team's playing. I agree. And I know I've gotten a little heated about this, but that's just because I've never liked Georgiev, and he is horrible right now.
Well, speaking of horrible goaltending and moving to better goaltending and better teams, my final surprise team is the Washington Capitals. I mean, you got Dylan Strome acting like he's a top line center. You've got Connor McMichael tied with Ovi for the team leading goals. And oh, by the way, Ovechkin's on. I think they said his pace is like 55 goals for this season. Which, if he does it, he will break the Gretzky record this year. I think right now he's 36 goals behind.
Yeah, he was 37 before their last game, and he scored
last
again.
Night, he scored once last night. Yeah. So, if he keeps it up at this pace, it's very possible. But he's still got another year on his contract too.
He's not going to stop playing until he breaks the contract. I mean, until he breaks the record. He will sign another contract. He will play till he's 50 if he has to. Now, obviously, he's scoring 30 more goals before he's 50. he's got 12 years before he's 50.
He's 39, so yeah, I mean,
And I mean, Yager is still putting up 80-point seasons over in wherever he's playing in the Champions League over there in Europe. So I mean, why not? He should just play in the NHL till he's 50, because if he can still score, I mean, it's amazing the longevity you can have when you just sit in a circle 24/7, but it also works. I mean,
yeah. I
they
mean,
were like,
look,
there was one video I saw that was like 8 years apart. They scored the exact same goal, and it was John Carlson passing it to him in the circle, and I was like, I'm pretty sure like 90% of Ovi's goals look like that. I was like, I
yeah,
don't think we really need to point out that it's 8 years apart. I think we can go back to his debut season and see him just sitting in that left circle and firing pucks into a net.
yeah. It's just that's what he does. That's the Ovechkin 1T. That's is the thing.
Exactly.
So, all right. Well, I think that's all we got for this evening on RSB Podcast, because we are sitting right at about an hour. We're over actually an hour, I
Slightly
think.
over an hour and a half.
Yeah. So, well, not an hour and a half. I don't think we're on that quick. I think we're probably sitting around an hour and 15 minutes, but we're gonna still try to keep these to an hour. But we'll be back. We'll try again next week to get one. If not, we will have one the following week. Uh, right before Thanksgiving. But we appreciate everybody here on Rut Sports Broadcasting. Stick with us here. Do you have any other closing comments?
No, just stay safe out there and enjoy winter. It's starting.
Right. Stay safe, everybody, and take care of one another. All right. This is Rut Sports Broadcasting signing off.